A single mom fixed a stranger's laptop late at night and accidentally saw his photo. He stepped behind her and asked, "Am I handsome?" What she didn't know, the man in the expensive suit was a mafia boss hiding from his own family. And the secrets on that computer just made her a target. The fluorescent light in Mia's workshop buzzed like an angry wasp at 11:47 p.m. She squinted at the cracked screen of a Dell laptop, her fifth repair of the day, when the bell above her door chimed. "We're closed," she called out without looking up, her fingers still working the tiny screwdriver around the laptop's hinge. "The sign says 24 hours. Mia's hand froze. The voice was smooth, controlled, the kind that made people listen without raising its volume. She looked up. The man in her doorway wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Mid-30s, dark hair pushed back, and a face that would have fit perfectly on a cologne advertisement. But it was his eyes that made her pulse quicken, dark, watchful, assessing everything in her cramped workshop like he was calculating exit routes. "The sign's from the previous owner," Mia said, setting down her tools. "I close at midnight. Come back tomorrow at 9-inch. I'll pay triple your rate." He stepped inside, and she noticed he moved carefully, like someone used to watching their back. "I need this fixed by tomorrow afternoon. No exceptions." He placed a sleek black laptop on her counter. Expensive, military grade by the look of it. Mia crossed her arms. "Sir, I have a 4-year-old who needs to be picked up from my mom's at 7 a.m. I can't pull an all-nighter for her. 5 times your rate." She blinked. "What's wrong with it?" "Water damage. It won't boot." He slid a business card across the counter. "Vincent Romano, private consultant. No company name, no logo, just a phone number. Everything on that machine is encrypted and backed up, but I need the physical device working. Discreetly." The word discreetly hung in the air like a red flag. Mia picked up the laptop, feeling its weight. "I'll need to open it up, dry the components, maybe replace the logic board if it's fried. That's 8 to 10 hours of work, minimum." "Then you should get started." He pulled out a money clip, actual cash, not a credit card, and counted out $500 bills. "Half now. Half when it's done. And Miss
Chun. Mia Chen.
Miss Chun," his eyes locked onto hers. "I trust you understand that privacy is paramount. Whatever you see on that computer stays in this room." Something in his tone made her mouth go dry. This wasn't a normal businessman worried about corporate emails. This was something else entirely. "I don't snoop," she said, taking the money because God knew she needed it. Her landlord had left another threat-laced voicemail that afternoon. "I fix hardware. That's it." "Good." He headed for the door, then paused. "One more thing. If anyone asks about this repair, anyone at all, you tell them no. You've never seen me, never worked on this laptop. Understood?"
Mia nodded slowly.
The bell chimed as he left, and suddenly her small workshop felt very empty and very cold. She stared at the laptop for a full minute before sighing and pulling her rolling chair closer. 5 times her rate was $1,500. That was 2 months of rent, groceries, and Jake's daycare covered. She couldn't afford principals right now. The disassembly went smoothly. She'd worked on this model before, high-end, used by government contractors and security firms. The water damage was worse than Romano had described. Someone had spilled an entire glass of something across the keyboard. Coffee, maybe, or whiskey. By 2 a.m., she had the logic board dried and cleaned, the keyboard replaced with a spare from her parts bin, and the battery reconnected. She held her breath and pressed the power button. The screen flickered, blinked, then lit up with a password prompt. "Thank God," she muttered, reaching for her phone to text Romano that it was ready. But the screen glitched, just for a second, and a folder popped open before the lock screen could reload. Mia's finger hovered over the power button to shut it down, but she'd already seen it. The photo. Vincent Romano in a tuxedo, standing in what looked like a mansion study. But it wasn't the formal wear that made her blood run cold. It was the family crest on the wall behind him, a golden eagle with spread wings, clutching a sword and scales. Her late husband David's voice echoed in her memory. The Romano family, Mia. Eagles and swords. If you ever see that crest, you run. You don't ask questions, you don't get curious, you run. David had been a police informant. He died 3 years ago in what the reports called a targeted robbery. Mia had never believed it. And now Romano's family crest was staring at her from a laptop screen in her workshop. Holy shit, she whispered. Something wrong. Mia's heart nearly stopped. She spun around. Vincent Romano stood in her workshop doorway. She hadn't heard the bell, hadn't heard him enter. How long had he been standing there? His eyes flicked to the laptop screen, then to her face.
No anger.
No threat. Just that same careful assessment, like he was solving a puzzle. Then he smiled, slow, almost amused. So, he said quietly, walking toward her counter. Am I handsome? Mia's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Every instinct screamed at her to lie, to pretend she hadn't seen anything, but the way he was looking at her suggested he already knew exactly what she'd seen. The screen glitched, she managed. I wasn't trying to. I know, he stopped at the counter, his hands relaxed at his sides, non-threatening, but somehow that made it worse. The laptop does that sometimes when it's been damaged. Cached images pop up before the encryption kicks in. Bad luck. For both of us. The silence stretched between them. Mr. Romano, I don't want any trouble. I'll forget I saw anything. I'll finish the repair, and we're done. I have a kid. I know you have a kid.
Jake.
4 years old. Goes to Little Sprouts Daycare on Maple Street. Ice flooded her veins. Are you threatening my son? No, his voice softened, genuinely, which somehow made this whole situation more surreal. I'm explaining that I've done my research, Miss Chen. I know you're not a threat. I know your husband was David Chen, informant for the Northeast Precinct. I know he died trying to do the right thing. And I know you've been struggling ever since. Tears burned behind Mia's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Then why tell me you know all this? Because, Romano said, picking up the laptop and examining her work with what looked like genuine appreciation, you deserve honesty. And because you're going to have a choice to make very soon. What choice? He pulled out the other $1,500 and set it on her counter. Whether or not to trust me when everything goes wrong. Mia didn't sleep that night. After Romano left with his repaired laptop and his cryptic warning, she locked every door twice, checked every window, and sat at her kitchen table with David's old case files spread in front of her. She'd kept them hidden in a box under her bed for 3 years. Photocopies he'd made before meeting with his handlers, notes scribbled in margins, photographs of people whose faces still gave her nightmares. The police had told her to destroy everything after David's death. She hadn't listened. Her hands trembled as she flipped through pages she'd tried to forget.
There.
Page 47. A grainy surveillance photo of a man entering a restaurant, his face partially obscured by a fedora. The caption read, V. Romano, suspected underboss, Northeast Territory. Handles financial operations. No confirmed arrests. Approach with extreme caution. Beneath it, David's handwriting. Don't trust the suit. He's the one who makes people disappear quietly.
Mia's stomach twisted.
The man who'd stood in her workshop hours ago, asking if he was handsome, was the same person her husband had warned her about with his dying breath, metaphorically speaking. She pulled out another document, this one a hand-drawn organizational chart showing the Romano crime family structure. At the top, Salvatore Romano, Don. Below him, 3 names, one circled in red. Vincent Romano, financial operations/enforcer. David had written beside it, the quiet one, more dangerous than his father, never leaves witnesses. If you ever hear this name, Mia, run. Take Jake and run. Her phone buzzed, making her jump. Unknown number. She stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Miss Chun, Romano's voice. You're awake. How did you? I didn't give you my personal number. I know. I apologize for the intrusion, but I need you to listen carefully. In approximately 6 hours, 2 men are going to visit your workshop. They'll ask if anyone came by last night needing repairs. You've never seen me. You worked on a teenager's gaming laptop and an older woman's tablet. Nothing else. Can you remember that?
Mia S. throat tightened.
Who are these men? People who want what's on that laptop. People I'm currently hiding from. Then why did you bring it to me? Why drag me into whatever? Because every other repair shop in the city is compromised. You are the only one they wouldn't think to watch, his voice lowered. And because your husband's name still carries weight in certain circles. Nobody touches David Chen's widow without consequences. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. Don't you dare use his name. You're exactly the kind of person he died trying to stop. I know, Romano said quietly. And I'm sorry for that. But right now, I'm also the only person who can keep you and Jake safe. So please, just for today, lie convincingly. He hung up. Mia sat there, phone pressed to her ear long after the line went dead, and let herself cry for the first time in months. Not just for David, but for the impossible situation she'd stumbled into, for the terror of being noticed by people who made others disappear, for the exhaustion of being a single mother who couldn't even afford to be safe. At 6:30 a.m., she woke Jake, dressed him in his favorite dinosaur shirt, and drove him to daycare like it was any other Thursday. Mommy, you look tired, Jake said from his car seat, clutching his stuffed brachiosaurus. Just worked late, baby. Was it fixing computers? Yeah, she met his eyes in the rearview mirror and forced a smile. Just fixing computers. She dropped him off with extra kisses, made the daycare teacher promise to call if anyone unusual came by, and drove back to her workshop with her heart hammering. The two men arrived at exactly 9:15 a.m. They weren't subtle about what they were. One had a neck tattoo partially hidden by his collar, an eagle's wing. The other wore rings on every finger, the kind designed to leave marks. Both wore expressions that said they'd done this before and enjoyed it. Morning, the tattooed one said, not bothering with pleasantries. We're looking for someone. Guy in his 30s, expensive suit, might have needed computer work done yesterday. Ring any bells? Mia kept her hands steady as she organized her tools. I had 3 customers yesterday. 2 regulars, 1 new. But no suits. Kid with a gaming laptop, older lady with a tablet, and a college student with a cracked screen. No one else? No one else. The one with the rings leaned on her counter, invading her space deliberately. See, the thing is, we have reason to believe you're lying. And lying to us, that's not smart. I'm not lying. She met his eyes, channeling every ounce of David's courage. If someone in a suit came by, I'd remember. I get mostly broke students and seniors. A guy like you're describing would stand out. They exchanged looks. You're David Chen's widow, Tattoo said suddenly. Her blood went cold, but she nodded. Heard he was a good man. Shame what happened. The words were sympathetic, but his eyes were calculating. If you do see this guy, Vincent Romano, you call us. There's $5,000 in it for information. He left a card with just a phone number. They left without another word, but Mia knew with absolute certainty this was only the beginning. And Romano had been right. Everything was about to go very, very wrong. Mia should have gone home. Should have picked up Jake early, packed their essentials, and driven to her mother's house 3 states away. Instead, she did something stupid. She pulled out the business card Romano had left, the one with just a phone number, and called it. He answered on the first ring. You met them. 2 men. One with an eagle tattoo on his neck, another with rings that looked like brass knuckles. They offered me $5,000 to rat you out. She paced her workshop, anger overriding fear. What the hell is on that laptop, Romano? Silence stretched for 3 seconds. Did they threaten you? Not directly.
But they knew about David.
They knew exactly who I was, her voice cracked. I did what you asked.
Elite.
Now tell me what I'm caught up in. Not over the phone. I'll come by tonight. No, she said it firmly. You don't come here again. Ever. Those men could be watching. My son. I understand. His voice shifted, became almost gentle. There's a park 3 blocks from your workshop. Cedar Grove. Meet me there at 8 tonight. Come alone. Make sure you're not followed. How am I supposed to know if I'm being followed? Take 2 buses in opposite directions, then walk. If someone's still behind you after that, call me immediately, he paused. And, Miss Chen? Bring pepper spray. The line went dead. Mia spent the rest of the day jumpy, checking the street outside her workshop every 15 minutes. Every customer who walked in made her pulse spike. She kept David's old switchblade in her pocket, the one he'd given her years ago, the one she'd sworn she'd never need. At 6 p.m., she closed early and picked up Jake from daycare. She took him to her mother's house in the suburbs, claiming she had a late job that might run past midnight. You look scared, her mother said at the door, holding Jake's hand.
I've been, Mom.
Mia, her mother's grip tightened on her arm. If you're in trouble, I'm not. I promise. Just a difficult client who might need support through the night. Tech emergency. The lie came easier than it should have. I'll pick him up tomorrow morning. She kissed Jake goodbye, ignored the worry in her mother's eyes, and followed Romano's instructions exactly. 2 buses. One north, one south. Then a 20-minute walk through neighborhoods she didn't know, constantly checking reflections in car windows and shop glass. Nobody followed her. At least nobody she could see. Cedar Grove Park was nearly empty at 8 p.m., just a jogger finishing their route, and a homeless man sleeping on a bench near the entrance. Mia found Romano sitting under an oak tree, looking nothing like the polished businessman from her workshop. He wore jeans, a plain black jacket, and a baseball cap pulled low. You weren't followed, he said as she approached. Not a question. How do you know? Because I've been here since 7, watching every entrance. He gestured to the bench beside him.
Seat.
Please. She sat, keeping distance between them, hand still on the pepper spray in her pocket. The laptop, Romano began without preamble, contains financial records proving that my father's second-in-command, Marco Tesaro, has been selling family information to the Volkov syndicate. Bank transfers, meeting locations, shipment routes. Everything needed to dismantle our organization from the inside. Why tell me this? Because you deserve to know what you accidentally became part of. He turned to face her, and in the dim park lighting, she saw exhaustion etched into his features. Marco thinks I'm the leak. He's convinced I copied those files to overthrow my father. The men who visited you today work for him. Mia's mind raced. But you're not the leak. You have proof it's him. Proof that was on a laptop that conveniently got water damaged. His jaw tightened. My father doesn't believe me. Half the family thinks I'm a traitor. Marco's been planning this for months. Isolated me. Turned my own men against me. And now he's trying to find that laptop before I can decrypt the files and clear my name. So, decrypt them. I can't. Not without the physical device, and even then, the encryption has a timer. If I enter the wrong password 3 times, everything gets wiped permanently. He met her eyes. That's why I needed it fixed so urgently. That's why I came to you, someone outside our world, someone they wouldn't think to watch. Until I accidentally saw your photo. Until you accidentally saw my photo, he agreed. And now Marco knows I had the laptop repaired somewhere. He's visiting every repair shop in the city, threatening technicians, checking security footage. It's only a matter of time before he finds a trail leading back to you. Fear crystallized in Mia's chest. My son is safe. I have people watching your mother's house. Discreetly, Romano pulled out a phone, different from the one he'd called her with. This is a clean burner. My direct number is programmed in. If anything, and I mean anything, feels wrong, you call me immediately. I don't care what time it is. She took the phone with shaking hands. Miss Chun, he said quietly, I'm sorry you got dragged into this. Your husband was right about people like me. We're dangerous. We destroy everything we touch. He stood, preparing to leave. But I promise you this, I won't let Marco hurt you or your son. Whatever it takes. He disappeared into the darkness before she could respond, leaving her alone with a burner phone and the terrifying knowledge that she was now a target in a war she didn't understand. 3 days passed without incident. 3 days of Mia jumping at every shadow, clutching the burner phone like a lifeline, checking Jake's daycare obsessively. 3 days of pretending everything was normal while her world balanced on a knife's edge. On the 4th day, Vincent Romano walked into her workshop at 2 p.m. carrying 2 coffees and what looked like a genuine smile. Miss Jun, he set 1 cup on her counter, caramel macchiato, somehow exactly how she liked it. I wanted to thank you properly. The laptop's been decrypted. You saved my life. Mia stared at him, then at the coffee, then back at him. You can't just walk in here in broad daylight. Those men have been dealt with, he said it casually, like discussing the weather. Marco's people won't be bothering you anymore. You're safe. Something in his tone made her stomach turn. Dealt with how? You don't want to know, he wasn't wrong. But I do owe you more than just coffee and gratitude. Your skill, your discretion, that's rare. I'd like to offer you a job. Absolutely not. Maintaining business devices for my organization. Nothing illegal on your end. Just hardware repair, software updates, basic IT support. The pay is $15,000 a month. Mia actually laughed, though there was no humor in it. You can't be serious. I'm always serious about money. He leaned against her counter, relaxed in a way that contradicted everything dangerous about him. You're talented, trustworthy, and you need the income. I need someone who isn't already on Marco's payroll. It's mutually beneficial. It's insane. I have a son. I can't work for the Mafia. You already did, his eyes held hers. And you were exceptional at it. That was 1 laptop. 1 night. This is... She gestured helplessly. This is my life. Jake's life. I can't. Her phone rang. Not the burner, her regular phone. She checked the screen, and her heart sank. Landlord. Romano raised an eyebrow but said nothing as she answered. Miss Chun, this is your final notice. I need 3 months' rent by Friday, or you're out. No more extensions. Mr. Peterson, please. I just need 2 more weeks. Friday. Cashier's check. Or the sheriff escorts you out Saturday morning. He hung up. Mia set the phone down carefully, fighting the urge to throw it across the room. $4,500. She had $800 in her account and another $200 in tips jar at home. Even with this week's repairs, she'd be lucky to scrape together $1,500 by Friday. How much? Romano asked quietly. None of your business. $4,500, it wasn't a question. Your landlord's been threatening eviction for 6 weeks. You're barely covering daycare costs, and Jake needs new shoes. I noticed his are 2 sizes too small when I had my people check on him. Fury blazed through her fear. You had people watching my son. Protecting him, Romano corrected. There's a difference. And before you throw that coffee at me, consider this. I'm offering you a legitimate way out. 1 month of work covers your rent for the year. 2 months covers daycare. And then some. 3 months, and you can finally fix that leak in your bathroom that's growing mold behind the tiles. How do you? She stopped. Of course he knew. He probably knew her shoe size and social security number too. I'm thorough, he said, answering her unspoken question. It's how I stay alive. Mia wanted to refuse. Wanted to tell him to take his blood money and leave. But she thought about Jake wearing shoes that hurt his feet because she couldn't afford new ones. Thought about the eviction notice that would force them into her mother's already cramped apartment. Thought about working 3 jobs and still falling further behind every month. Just maintaining devices, she heard herself say. Nothing illegal. I don't want to know what's on them. Don't want to be involved in any activities. Agreed. Romano pulled out a business card, different from the first one. This had an actual company name, Romano Security Consulting. Meet me at this address tomorrow at 4 p.m. I'll show you the setup, introduce you to the equipment. If you hate it, walk away. No pressure. Where is this? Downtown. Penthouse office. He finished his coffee, tossed the cup in her trash bin. Dress professionally. My associates appreciate appearances. He was halfway to the door when she called out. Why me? You could hire any IT person. Someone already in your world. Romano turned, and for the first time, she saw something vulnerable in his expression. Because everyone in my world wants something from me. Power, money, status. You just want to take care of your son. That's... He paused, choosing words carefully. That's refreshingly honest. After he left, Mia stood in her workshop for 10 full minutes, staring at the business card. Romano Security Consulting. She thought about David's warnings, about the files hidden under her bed, about every instinct screaming this was a terrible idea. Then she thought about Jake's 2 small shoes. She tucked the card in her wallet and tried not to think about how easily desperation could erase principles, or how she was about to walk willingly into the world that had killed her husband. At least this time, she told herself, she was doing it with her eyes open. The address led to a glass tower in the financial district, the kind of building with doormen in tailored suits and lobbies that echoed with wealth. Mia felt absurdly out of place in her best blouse and the slacks she'd worn to David's funeral 3 years ago. A woman in Chanel swept past her without a glance, heels clicking against marble like judgments. Miss Chun, a man in a black suit, appeared at her elbow, early 20s, military posture, earpiece visible. Mr. Romano is expecting you. This way, please. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like ascending into a different reality. The guard, because that's clearly what he was, stood perfectly still, hands clasped in front of him, eyes fixed on the ascending numbers. Do you work for Romano Security? Mia asked, trying to break the oppressive silence. Yes, ma'am. What do you do? Provide security, ma'am. The doors opened before she could push further, revealing a reception area that belonged in an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, leather furniture that probably cost more than her car, and abstract art that either meant nothing or everything depending on how pretentious you were. Romano stood by the windows, phone to his ear, gesturing as he spoke in rapid Italian. He wore a 3-piece navy suit that made his workshop appearance look like a costume. This was his real world: power, polish, and barely concealed danger. He ended the call as she approached. Miss Chen. Right on time. I appreciate punctuality. Nice office. She tried to keep her voice steady. Very legitimate looking. That's the idea, he smiled slightly. Romano Security Consulting handles private security contracts, cybersecurity assessments, risk management. All perfectly legal. We even pay taxes. And the other stuff stays far away from here. He gestured toward a hallway.
Come.
Let me show you where you'd be working. The workspace was actually a pristine tech room filled with equipment that made Mia's mouth water. Enterprise-grade servers, top-of-the-line repair tools, multiple workstations with curved monitors. It was every technician's fantasy. This is all yours, Romano said, watching her reaction. Devices come in, you repair or maintain them, they go back out. My assistant will handle intake and delivery. You never meet the end users. You just make sure everything works perfectly. Mia ran her hand over a workbench that hadn't seen a single scratch. What kind of devices? Laptops, tablets, phones, occasionally security systems. Encrypted equipment mostly. Nothing you haven't handled before. He opened a cabinet revealing organized rows of parts and components. Full inventory, replaced quarterly. If you need something we don't have, order it. No budget restrictions. No budget restrictions, she repeated, thinking of her workshop where she'd been using the same screwdriver set for 6 years. The job is simple. Monday through Friday, 4 to 8 p.m., after you pick up Jake from daycare. Weekends off unless there's an emergency, which is rare. $15,000 a month, deposited into whatever account you specify. It was too good. Way too good. What's the catch? Discretion. Romano's voice hardened slightly. What you work on here stays here. You don't discuss devices, clients, or anything you might accidentally see. You don't bring anyone to this building. And if law enforcement ever comes asking questions, I've never been here, never worked for you, don't know what they're talking about. Exactly. He pulled out a contract from his jacket pocket. Read it thoroughly. Take it home if you want. No pressure. Mia took the papers, scanning the dense legal language. It was surprisingly straightforward. Employment agreement, NDA, liability waivers. Her duties listed clearly: hardware maintenance and repair. Nothing about money laundering or evidence disposal or whatever else she'd feared. There's a life insurance policy included, Romano pointed out. $500,000, beneficiary of your choice. Usually Jake, I assume. Also health insurance, dental, vision. Jake's covered too. Her throat tightened. Jake hadn't seen a dentist in over a year because she couldn't afford it. Why are you doing this? She asked. The generous pay, the benefits. You could hire someone for half this amount. Romano was quiet for a moment, staring out the windows at the city below. My mother died when I was 7. Cancer. My father was absent emotionally. I was raised by nannies and guards, people paid to care. He turned to face her. You remind me of her. The way you talk about your son. That fierce protection. It's rare in my world. The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. This wasn't the mafia enforcer or the smooth businessman. This was something real underneath. I'm sorry about your mother, Mia said softly. Sign the contract, Miss Chen. Let me help you take care of Jake the way someone should have helped my mother take care of me. As she left the building an hour later, contract signed and a $5,000 signing bonus check in her purse, Mia noticed the security cameras covering every angle of the lobby. She noticed the armed guards disguised as hotel staff near the elevators. She noticed how everyone moved with purpose, with awareness, with barely concealed weapons. This wasn't just a consulting firm. This was a fortress masquerading as legitimate business. And she'd just agreed to work inside it 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, maintaining the technology that kept the fortress running. On the bus ride home, she called her landlord and told him she'd have his money by Friday. Then she held Jake extra tight that night and tried not to think about what David would say if he could see her now. The first week at Romano Security went smoothly. Too smoothly. Mia repaired 17 devices, high-end laptops, encrypted phones, a tablet with military-grade security. Nobody bothered her. Nobody asked questions. Romano's assistant, a efficient woman named Teresa, delivered devices in the morning and collected them in the evening without small talk. The money hit her account exactly when promised.
$15,000.
Mia stared at her bank balance for 10 full minutes, waiting for it to disappear, convinced it was a mistake. It wasn't. She paid her landlord, bought Jake new shoes and a winter coat, scheduled his dental appointment, and even, luxuriously, ordered Thai food instead of making pasta for the 3rd night in a row. For the first time in 3 years, she could breathe. That should have been her first warning. Friday evening, she left the penthouse building at 8:30, later than usual after a complicated motherboard replacement. The downtown streets were busy with the after-work crowd, people heading to bars, couples walking to dinner, the usual urban chaos. Mia joined the flow toward the subway station, mentally planning her weekend. Pick up Jake from her mother's house tonight, maybe take him to the zoo tomorrow, if the weather held. A man in a gray hoodie stood at the subway entrance, scrolling his phone.
Nothing unusual about that.
Except Mia had seen the same gray hoodie outside Romano's building when she'd arrived 4 hours ago. Her pulse quickened. She kept walking past the subway entrance toward the bus stop 2 blocks down. Changed plans. No big deal. People changed their minds about transportation all the time. At the bus stop, she risked a glance back. Gray hoodie was a block behind, no longer on his phone, walking with deliberate casualness. Mia's mouth went dry. Romano's instructions from weeks ago echoed in her mind. If someone's following you, call me immediately. The bus arrived, downtown route, opposite direction from her apartment. She boarded, swiped her card, found a seat near the back where she could watch the doors. Gray hoodie didn't board. He stayed on the sidewalk, watching the bus pull away. Relief flooded through her. Just paranoia. Working for Romano was making her jumpy, that's all. Then she saw him. Different man, navy jacket, standing near the middle of the bus. He'd been at the penthouse too, she realized with creeping horror. Sitting in the lobby when she'd walked past to the elevators. This wasn't paranoia. She was being followed. And not by Romano's people. She'd learned to recognize them over the past week. They moved like Romano, with that careful awareness. These men moved like hunters. Mia forced herself to stay calm. For more stops until the transit center, busy, public, lots of security cameras. She'd switch buses there, call Romano from somewhere safe, figure this out. but her hands trembled as she clutched her purse. The bus rumbled through downtown, stopping every few blocks. Navy Jacket never looked directly at her, but she caught him checking his phone, then glancing in her direction. Coordinating with someone. At the transit center, Mia waited until the last second before jumping off the bus. Navy Jacket followed, not bothering to hide it anymore. The transit center was packed, commuters rushing between platforms, homeless people camped near the heated vents, transit police by the ticket machines. She headed straight for the police, then stopped. What was she going to say? "Officers, I think I'm being followed because I work for a Mafia front company?" They'd either laugh or arrest her for wasting their time. She ducked into the crowded bathroom instead, locked herself in a stall, and pulled out the burner phone Romano had given her. Her regular phone was for normal life. The burner was for emergencies. This qualified. Romano answered immediately. "What's wrong?" "I'm being followed. 2 men, maybe more. Gray hoodie and navy jacket. They were outside your building when I arrived. They're still on me now," her voice cracked. "I'm at the transit center, but I don't know what to." Listen carefully. His voice was pure command now, no gentleness. "Go to platform 7, the one for the airport express. Don't board. Walk past it to the taxi stand on the north side. There's a black SUV waiting, license plate HNK 4729.
Get in.
The driver knows where to take you." "How did you?" "I've had people watching you all week. I knew someone was surveilling my building." Something hard entered his tone. "I didn't expect them to follow you this aggressively. They're getting desperate." "Who are they?" "We'll discuss it when you're safe."
Go. Now.
Mia ended the call and emerged from the bathroom, scanning the crowd. Navy Jacket stood near the coffee kiosk, pretending to read a departure board. No sign of Gray hoodie, which meant he was probably circling, cutting off exits. She walked toward platform 7, heart hammering, trying to look casual. Just a woman heading home. Nothing to see. Nothing suspicious. Navy Jacket followed at a distance. Platform 7 was less crowded. The airport express didn't run this late on Fridays. She walked past the empty platform, around the corner toward the taxi stand, and saw it. Black SUV, license plate HNK 4729, engine running. The back door opened as she approached. "Get in, Miss Chun." A woman's voice called from inside. "Quickly, please." Mia dove into the SUV. The door slammed shut. The vehicle accelerated before she'd even buckled her seatbelt. Through the rear window, she saw Navy Jacket running toward them, phone to his ear, fury on his face. Then they turned a corner, and he disappeared. "Where are we going?" Mia asked the driver, a woman in her 40s with a scar across her jaw and eyes that had seen too much. "Somewhere they won't find you," the woman replied. "Mr. Romano's orders." The SUV didn't take her to the penthouse or her apartment. Instead, they drove 40 minutes outside the city to a small riverside cafe that looked like it had been pulled from a postcard. Fairy lights strung between trees, outdoor tables overlooking the water, couples enjoying late dinners. Peaceful, neutral, safe. Romano sat at a corner table, far from other diners, his back to the wall with a clear view of all entrances. He wasn't alone. 3 of his security team sat at nearby tables, pretending to be regular customers, but scanning the area constantly. "Miss Chun," he stood as she approached, concern evident on his face. "Are you hurt?"
No.
"Just." She sank into the chair across from him, adrenaline finally crashing. Terrified. Confused. Angry that you didn't tell me I'd be watched. "For that, I apologize." He poured her water from a glass pitcher, waited until she'd taken several sips. "I thought surveillance would deter them. I was wrong." "Who are they? And don't give me vague answers." "I just got chased through a transit center by men who clearly want something from me. I deserve the truth." Romano studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "You're right. You do." He leaned forward, voice low. "The laptop you repaired contained evidence against Marco Tesoro, financial records, communications, everything proving he's been selling our family's secrets to the Volkov syndicate. But it also contained something else." "What?" A list of everyone Marco has compromised. Police officers, judges, politicians, people on our payroll who've secretly switched sides. It's a kill list, essentially. Every name on that document is someone Marco plans to eliminate once he takes over the organization.
Mia stomach twisted.
And these men following me think I copied that list. Not just copied it. Marco's convinced you have a backup. That I gave you the files for safekeeping. Romano's jaw tightened. He thinks I'm using you as insurance, that if anything happens to me, you'll release everything to the authorities. But I don't have anything. I fixed the laptop, and that's it. I know that. You know that. But Marco doesn't believe it. He pulled out his phone, showed her surveillance photos, grainy images of the men who'd followed her. These are Volkov operatives, not even our people. Marco's outsourced your surveillance to the Russians because he doesn't trust his own men around me anymore. The weight of those words settled over her like a suffocating blanket. So what do? I can't live like this. I have a son. I know. The anguish in his voice surprised her. This is my fault. I should never have involved you. I thought keeping you at arm's length, having you work in the clean office, would protect you. I was naive. Yes, you were. Anger bled through her fear. You paid me well, gave me benefits, made me feel secure for the first time in years. And all of it was a trap. It wasn't a trap. The job is real. The safety was supposed to be real. He met her eyes. I didn't lie about why I hired you. You reminded me of my mother, of people who protect what they love fiercely. I wanted to help. I underestimated how paranoid Marco has become. A waiter approached, and Romano waved him away politely. Around them, the cafe hummed with normal life. People on dates, friends laughing, a guitarist playing soft music near the water. It felt surreal, discussing death lists and Russian operatives in such a peaceful place. Did you see anything? Romano asked quietly. When you worked on the laptop, did you actually see any files? Any names or documents? Mia thought back to that night. Just your photo.
The crest.
The folder opened for maybe 3 seconds before I shut it down. You're certain? You didn't glimpse any text, any names? I'm certain. She held his gaze. I told you, I don't snoop. I saw the photo, recognized the danger, and closed it immediately. That's the truth. Relief flickered across his face. Then you're not a witness. You can't testify to what's in those files, can't corroborate anything. That should matter to Marco. Should, but doesn't apparently. No, Romano's hand clenched into a fist on the table. Because he's not thinking rationally anymore. He's convinced I'm planning a coup, that you're part of some elaborate scheme. Logic doesn't reach men like that. The guitarist switched to a melancholy melody, something about lost chances and regret. I need to disappear, Mia said suddenly. Take Jake and leave. Change our names. Start over somewhere Marco and the Volkovs can't find us. I can arrange that. New identities, relocation, money to start fresh. Romano's voice was careful. But it would mean leaving everything, your mother, your friends, your life. Jake would have to leave his school, his routine. And you'd always be looking over your shoulder, wondering if they found you. What's the alternative? Let me handle Marco. Permanently, the word hung between them like a blade. I have the evidence. I just need time to present it correctly, turn the family against him before he can strike first. How much time? A week. Maybe less. He reached across the table, stopped just short of touching her hand. I can keep you safe for a week. Protective custody, moving locations, full security detail. You and Jake, completely isolated from Marco's reach. And if your plan doesn't work? Romano's expression hardened. Then I'll get you both out personally, even if it costs me everything. The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. This man, this criminal, this enforcer, this person her husband had warned her about, genuinely cared whether she and Jake survived. 1 week, Mia said. But if anything happens to my son, it won't, Romano promised. I swear on my mother's memory it won't. Romano moved them that same night. Not to a hotel or a safe house Mia expected, but to a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood 40 minutes from the city. Third floor walk-up, creaky stairs, neighbors who minded their own business. The kind of place nobody would look for a mafia boss's protected witnesses. It's temporary, Romano explained as he carried Jake, still sleeping, inside. 2 days here, then we move again. Never establish a pattern. Mia's mother had been surprisingly calm when they'd picked up Jake at midnight, Romano explaining in vague terms that Mia's employer had security concerns and needed her relocated briefly. Her mother had looked at Romano, really looked at him, and said only, "Keep my grandson safe." "With my life, ma'am," he'd replied. Now Jake slept in the apartment's single bedroom while Mia sat on the worn couch, watching Romano's security team sweep the apartment for the third time. They were thorough, checking outlets, light fixtures, even inside the toilet tank. "You really think Marco would bug a random apartment?" Mia asked. "I think Marco has eyes everywhere," Romano said, accepting a tablet from one of his guards. "And I don't take chances with," he stopped, reading whatever was on the screen. His expression darkened. "God damn it. What?" He turned the tablet toward her. Security footage from her workshop, time-stamped 2 hours ago. 2 men, different from the transit center followers, smashing her equipment, overturning furniture, spray-painting something on the wall. Mia's hand flew to her mouth. Her beautiful tools, the repair bench she'd saved for months to buy, her inventory of parts, destroyed. "Can you zoom in on the wall?" Her voice cracked. Romano expanded the image. The spray-painted message was simple, chilling. "Return the files. They think you still have copies," one of the guards muttered. "They're escalating." "My workshop," Mia whispered. "That's my livelihood. Everything I've built can be rebuilt." Romano's voice was hard. "With better equipment, better security. But only if you're alive to do it." She wanted to scream. Wanted to throw something, cry, rage at the unfairness of watching her life dismantled by men hunting something she didn't even possess. Instead, she pressed her palms against her eyes and focused on breathing. "They left a note," another guard said, holding up his phone. "Local police found it during their sweep. I'll send you the image." Romano's phone buzzed. He read the message, his jaw tightening with each word. Then, without speaking, he handed it to Mia. The note was typed clinical. "Miss Chin, you have something that belongs to us. Return the files within 48 hours, or we'll visit Little Sprouts Daycare on Maple Street. Children are so fragile. It would be a shame if anything happened during pickup time. You have our number. Call when you're ready to cooperate." Ice flooded Mia's veins. They'd threatened Jake. Actually threatened her 4-year-old son. "No," she stood abruptly, fury overwhelming fear. "No, they don't get to do this. I don't have their goddamn files. I never did. I know. So make them understand." Her voice rose. "You're supposed to be powerful, connected, dangerous.
Make them
understand." Romano stood slowly, and for the first time, she saw real anger in his eyes. Not the controlled fury of a businessman, but something colder, more lethal. "They crossed a line threatening your son. What are you going to do?" "What I should have done a week ago," he turned to his guards. "Get me Marco's current location. I don't care if he's at a church or a funeral. I'm done playing defense. Boss, if you go after him directly." He threatened a 4-year-old child. Romano's voice dropped to something barely above a whisper, somehow more terrifying than shouting. "There are rules, even in our world." He broke them. One guard left immediately, already making calls. The others exchanged glances, but said nothing.
Mia grabbed Romano's arm. "Wait.
If you go after Marco now, won't that start the war you've been trying to avoid?" "The war's already started." He just fired the opening shot. Romano covered her hand with his, and she felt the tension thrumming through him. "But I won't let it touch Jake. I promise you that." "How can you promise that? You can't control." "Yes, I can." He met her eyes. "Do you know what my role in the family actually is, Miss Chin? Not just finances. I'm the one who handles problems that need to disappear quietly. I'm very, very good at making threats go away permanently." The words should have terrified her. Instead, staring at the threatening note about her son's daycare, she felt something else entirely, relief that someone with Romano's particular skills was on her side. "How long until you find him?" she asked quietly. "Hours. Maybe less." Romano pulled out his phone. "I'm arranging new security for your mother's house and the daycare. Armed guards, completely invisible to Jake. He'll never know they're there." This is insane. This whole situation, my life shouldn't be like this. "No," Romano agreed softly. "It shouldn't, and I'm going to fix it." He left with his guards at 2 a.m., leaving one man stationed outside the apartment door and another watching the building's entrance. Mia checked on Jake, still sleeping peacefully, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, completely unaware that men had threatened his life. She sat on the floor beside his bed, back against the wall, workshop knife in her hand, and waited for dawn. The war Romano had tried to prevent was here, and her son was caught in the crossfire. Romano returned at dawn looking like he'd aged a decade overnight. Blood speckled his shirt collar. Not his own, Mia realized with a lurch. His knuckles were split, hastily bandaged. But his eyes held something she hadn't seen before, exhaustion that went beyond physical. "Is it done?" she asked from the kitchen table where she'd been waiting, coffee long gone cold. "Marco's people know not to touch you or Jake. I made that very clear." He sat down heavily, wincing. "The workshop threat, that was overstep. I've ensured it won't happen again." "Ensured how?" "You don't want details." He was right. She didn't. But she also needed to understand what kind of man was protecting her son. "Did you kill anyone?" Romano met her eyes.
No.
"But I hurt people badly enough that they'll remember why crossing me is a mistake." He paused. "Does that frighten you?" Honestly, it should have. Instead, Mia felt that same disturbing relief. It should. But all I can think about is Jake being safe.
He is.
"I've stationed guards at your mother's house. They look like utility workers doing line maintenance. The daycare has 2 off-duty police officers I trust personally. And this apartment is secure." He rubbed his face. "You can stay here as long as needed. I'll keep moving you every few days until this is finished." "How long will that be?" "I'm presenting the evidence to my father tomorrow night. Family meeting. All the senior members present. Once they see proof of Marco's betrayal, he's finished." His voice held certainty, but his eyes betrayed doubt.
Jake's door creaked open.
He wandered out in dinosaur pajamas, dragging his stuffed Brachiosaurus, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He stopped when he saw Romano. "Who are you?" Jake asked with 4-year-old directness. "A friend of your mom's." "My name's Vincent." Romano's entire demeanor shifted, the dangerous enforcer disappearing behind something softer, more genuine. "That's a cool dinosaur. His name is Longneck." Like from the movie, Jake climbed into Mia's lap. "Why are we at a different house?" "We're on an adventure," Mia said, kissing his hair. "Remember how I told you Mommy got a new job? Well, my boss needs us to stay somewhere safe for a little while." Jake accepted this, with a child's easy logic. "Can we have pancakes?" "I'll make them," Romano offered, standing. "If that's okay with your mom?"
Mia blinked.
"You cook." "My mother taught me before she died. It's one of the few normal things I remember." He opened the apartment's small pantry, already stocked, she noticed. He'd thought of everything. Chocolate chip or blueberry, Jake. Both. Watching Romano cook pancakes in the cramped kitchen, carefully adding chocolate chips in smiley faces for Jake, felt surreal. This was the man who'd just spent the night terrorizing his enemies. The same man who now patiently answered Jake's endless questions about dinosaurs while flipping pancakes with surprising skill. "Did you know Brachiosaurus could eat from really tall trees?" Jake explained seriously. "Because their necks were super long." "I didn't know that," Romano replied, completely engaged. "What else can you tell me about them?" While Jake launched into an enthusiastic lecture, Mia saw something crack in Romano's careful facade. Loneliness, she realized. This man who wielded power and fear so effortlessly was profoundly, desperately lonely. After breakfast, Jake settled in front of the TV with cartoons. Romano helped Mia clean dishes in the tiny kitchen, their shoulders nearly touching in the confined space. "You're good with him," Mia said quietly. "I always wanted kids," the admission came softly. "But my life, it's no place for children. Too dangerous, too unstable. I'd just be repeating what my father did to me." Which was? Romano was silent for a long moment, hands stilling in the soapy water. "He loved me in his way. But the family always came first. Every birthday missed, every school play he couldn't attend, every time he looked at me and saw a successor instead of a son, he rinsed a plate carefully. By the time I was 12, I understood I was a legacy, not a person. A tool to continue the Romano name. That's horrible. It's practical. Emotions are liabilities in our world," he turned to face her. "Except I'm discovering that practicality doesn't protect you from loneliness. You can have power, money, respect, and still come home to empty rooms where nobody knows your actual name." The vulnerability in his voice made Mia's chest ache. "What is your actual name?" "Vincent's real, right?"
Vincent Salvatore Romano.
"Named after my grandfather," a sad smile. "But Vincent died years ago. Now there's just Romano, the enforcer, the problem solver, the heir everyone fears and nobody trusts." From the living room, Jake laughed at something on TV. Pure, uncomplicated joy. "He doesn't fear you," Mia observed. "Because he doesn't know what I am." Romano's expression darkened. "When this is over, when you're safe again, you should keep it that way. Let him think I was just your boss who helped during a difficult time. Nothing more."
"Why?"
"Because the next war begins if they know where I am." He quoted his own words from their cafe meeting. "And anyone close to me becomes a target. I won't do that to Jake. Or to you." He left shortly after, taking his guards with him except for one stationed discreetly across the street. But the apartment felt emptier somehow, despite Jake's constant chatter. Mia found herself thinking about Romano's words, about empty rooms and loneliness despite power, about a boy who'd lost his mother and never really had a father, about a man trapped in a legacy he never chose but couldn't escape. She thought about how gently he'd made Jake smile with chocolate chip pancakes. And she wondered what Vincent might have become if he'd been allowed to be just Vincent, instead of Romano. The call came at 3 p.m. the next day while Mia was helping Jake build a blanket fort. Tomorrow night was too late. Romano's voice was tight, controlled panic underneath. "Marco's moving against my father tonight. I need your help."
"Now."
Mia's stomach dropped. "What kind of help?" "The encrypted folder you saw on the laptop. I can access it, but I need to extract specific files and transfer them to a clean device. My people are good, but they're not you. I need someone I trust absolutely, and that list is very short." He paused. "I wouldn't ask if there was any other option." "Where and when?" "Old railway depot on the industrial side. Abandoned for years, neutral territory. Neither my people nor Marco's control it. I'll have guards. You'll be protected." His voice softened. "Bring Jake to your mother's first. Extra security's already there. He'll be safe." 2 hours later, after an agonizing goodbye with Jake, who didn't understand why Mommy looked so scared, Mia sat in Romano's SUV heading toward the warehouse district. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of blood orange. "Walk me through what you need," she said, focusing on the technical to avoid thinking about the danger. Romano handed her a tablet showing file structures. The encrypted folder has a master file containing all of Marco's communications with the Volkovs. Bank transfers, meeting logs, the kill list. But it's protected by triple encryption and a timer. After 3 failed password attempts, everything wipes. "So, you need me to bypass the password requirement?"
"No."
"I have the password. But the extraction has to be perfect, copied to 3 separate devices simultaneously without triggering any fail-safes. One mistake, and the evidence disappears forever." Mia studied the security protocols. Complex, but manageable with the right tools. "I'll need a clean room setup, power backups in case something interrupts the transfer, and..." "Already arranged. Everything you specified last week when I asked hypothetically about secure data transfers." He glanced at her. "I've been planning this for a while. Just hoped I wouldn't need it." The railway depot was exactly as foreboding as it sounded. Hulking metal structure, broken windows, graffiti covering every surface. But inside, Romano had set up a surprisingly sophisticated temporary tech station. Generators humming, professional equipment, proper lighting. 6 of his guards positioned themselves around the space, watching entrances, checking sight lines. Military precision. Marco knows about this meeting? Mia asked, setting up her workstation. He knows I'm presenting evidence tonight. He doesn't know where or how Romano placed the laptop carefully on her desk. But he'll figure it out. We have maybe an hour before his people locate us. Then let's work fast. Mia lost herself in the familiar rhythm of technical work. Connect the drives, initialize the security protocols, input the master password Romano provided. The folder opened, revealing hundreds of files, emails, financial records, photographs. She deliberately didn't read the contents. Just focused on the transfer process, watching progress bars tick upward across 3 separate devices. 60% complete when the first shots rang out. Mia flinched, nearly disconnecting a cable. Romano's hand steadied hers. Keep working. They're just announcing their arrival. More gunfire, closer now. Shouting in Italian. Romano's guards returned fire, the sound deafening in the metal structure. How much longer? Romano asked, his gun now drawn, eyes on the eastern entrance. 4 minutes. Maybe less if. A bullet sparked off metal near their position. Mia's hands shook, but she kept them steady on the keyboard. 3 minutes. Romano moved to shield her body with his, gun aimed toward shadows moving in the depot's far corners. Marco, he shouted. This is pointless. I already have the evidence. Then you'll die with it. Marco's voice echoed from somewhere above, the catwalks. And the tech dies too.
No witnesses, been sent. You taught me that.
80% complete. A figure emerged from behind a rusted train car, one of Marco's men, raising a rifle toward Mia's position. Romano fired twice, clean shots, and the man dropped. I taught you loyalty. Romano called back. I taught you honor. You betrayed everything. I adapted. You're still playing by your father's outdated rules while the world moves on.
Marco laughed, uninged.
The Volkovs offered me a real partnership, not servitude under the Romano name. 90% complete. More guards poured in. Marco's people, at least a dozen. Romano's 6 held them back, but barely. The depot had become a war zone, muzzle flashes lighting the darkness like a nightmare strobe. Vincent, one of his guards shouted. West entrance, they're flanking.
Romano grabbed mia esse arm.
Can you pause the transfer?
No.
If I interrupt it now, the encryption resets and we lose everything. Then we hold. He repositioned, covering multiple angles now, firing with precision that spoke of years of training. 95%. A guard went down, Romano's man, clutching his shoulder. Another took his position immediately, returning fire. 98%. Marco appeared on the catwalk, gun aimed down at them. It's over, Vincent. Even if you get those files, you think the family will believe you? I've been poisoning them against you for months. They'll believe the bank records, Romano said calmly, firing toward the catwalk. Marco ducked back. They'll believe your signature on contracts selling our routes to the Volkovs. They'll believe proof. 100%. Done. Mia yanked the drives free, shoved them into a protective case. I've got it. Romano grabbed her hand and ran, his remaining guards providing cover as they sprinted toward the south exit where vehicles waited. Bullets chased them, sparking off metal and concrete, but Romano's body stayed between her and the gunfire. They burst through the exit into cool night air. The SUV's engine was already running. Go! Romano shoved her inside, turned back to lay covering fire for his retreating guards. In the chaos, Mia saw Marco on the catwalk, aiming directly at Romano's back. She screamed a warning.
Romano span, fired.
Both men's guns cracked simultaneously. Romano staggered, but didn't fall. Marco wasn't as lucky. He dropped his gun, clutching his shoulder, cursing in rapid Italian as his men rushed to pull him back into the depot's shadows. "Boss!" One of Romano's guards grabbed his arm, blood seeping through Romano's jacket. "You're hit." "Grazed." "Move." Romano practically threw himself into the SUV beside Mia as bullets peppered the vehicle's armored exterior. The driver floored it before the door fully closed. Mia's hands shook as she clutched the case containing the drives. "You were shot." "Barely." Marco's aim has gotten worse. Romano pressed a hand to his side, wincing. "Did all 3 drives complete the transfer?" "Yes, but you're bleeding." "Then we won." "Everything else is manageable." He pulled out his phone with his uninjured hand, dialing.
Papa?
"It's Vincent. I need an emergency family meeting. Tonight. Everyone." "No, I don't care if Uncle Leo is in Miami. Get him on video call." He paused, listening. "Because I have proof Marco tried to kill me 20 minutes ago, and more importantly, proof he's been selling us to the Volkovs for 8 months. How much proof?" "Enough to bury him." The SUV raced through industrial streets toward downtown. Romano gave the driver an address Mia didn't recognize, then turned to her. "I need to bring you to the meeting." "Absolutely not. You're the only neutral witness. You extracted the files. You can testify they weren't tampered with. My word against Marco's means nothing. The family's already divided. But you," he gripped her hand, "you have no stake in family politics. Your testimony is credible. I'm not testifying to the Mafia about. You're testifying to my father. A businessman who needs to know his second-in-command is a traitor." Romano's eyes locked onto hers.
Please.
"I know it's asking too much. I know you've already risked everything. But I need you one last time." Mia thought of Jake, safe at her mother's house. Thought of her destroyed workshop. Thought of the threat against her son's daycare. Thought of Romano making chocolate chip pancake faces and admitting he was lonely. "One last time," she agreed. "Then we're done. You handle your war, I take my son and disappear."
Deal.
The address was a private social club in the financial district. Old money, older secrets. They entered through a side entrance, Romano's guards flanking them. His jacket was buttoned now, hiding the blood, but Mia could see pain in the tightness around his eyes. The meeting room was all dark wood and leather, cigar smoke hanging in the air. 12 men sat around a massive table, older versions of Romano, all carrying the same dangerous awareness. At the head sat Salvatore Romano, the Don himself, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. "Vincent," his voice carried generations of authority. "You interrupt my evening with accusations. This better be worth it." "It is." Romano placed the 3 drives on the table. 8 months of evidence. Marco Tesaro has been selling our operations to the Volkov syndicate. Routes, contacts, payment schedules, everything. Marco stood near the window, his shoulder bandaged, face twisted with rage.
Lies.
"He's trying to stage a coup, can't you see? He brought an outsider to a family meeting. That alone proves." "This outsider is the computer technician who extracted the encrypted files from Vincent's laptop," Salvatore interrupted. "The same files you've been desperately trying to find, Marco." "Interesting coincidence." Marco's face paled slightly. Salvatore nodded to someone in the corner. A tech specialist appeared, setting up equipment. "We'll verify these files now. If they're authentic, we proceed. If they're fabricated," his gaze shifted to Vincent, "then we have a different problem." The next hour was excruciating. The specialist loaded files, verified encryption signatures, cross-referenced bank records with known accounts. Marco grew increasingly agitated, while Romano sat perfectly still despite his injury, hand occasionally touching his side. Finally, the specialist nodded. "Authentic."
No tampering, no vulterations.
These communications between Marco Tesaro and Dmitry Volkov spanned 8 months. Financial transfers total approximately $12 million. The room erupted in Italian, shouting, accusations, several men drawing weapons. Salvatore slammed his hand on the table once, and silence fell immediately. "Marco," Salvatore's voice was cold death. "Explain." "They offered partnership." Marco's composure cracked. "Real partnership, not serving the Romano throne forever." Vincent gets everything, your approval, the succession, respect, while the rest of us are just soldiers. I was building something bigger, something modern. You are selling our family. Salvatore stood slowly. For what?
Money? Pride?
For freedom from him. Marco pointed at Vincent. From his judgment, his perfection, his shadow over everything. You never saw it, did you? How he makes us all feel inadequate just by existing. Romano's expression didn't change, but Mia saw his hand tighten into a fist. You destroyed lives over jealousy, Salvatore said quietly. Threatened innocence, betrayed your oath, brought Russians into our territory. And for what? Because my son was better at the work than you? I would have been better if you'd given me the chance. You had every chance. You chose betrayal. Salvatore looked at the men around the table. The family will vote. But first, he turned to Mia. Miss Jen, you witnessed the extraction of these files. Yes, sir. And they were not altered or fabricated.
No, sir.
I transferred them directly from the encrypted source. What you're seeing is exactly what was on that laptop.
Salvatore nodded slowly.
Then we vote. Marco Tesoro stands accused of treason against the Romano family. Those in favor of permanent removal? Every hand rose. Even Marco's closest allies. Marco lunged for Salvatore with a hidden knife, desperation in his eyes. Romano moved faster, tackling Marco despite his injury, disarming him in 3 brutal motions. Blood from his side wound spread across his shirt, but his grip never wavered. It's over, Marco, Romano said quietly. Accept it with dignity. 3 weeks later, Mia stood in front of her workshop, staring at the freshly painted sign. Chin Computer Repair. Reopening soon. The interior had been completely renovated. New equipment that made her old tools look like toys, proper security system, reinforced door, even a small waiting area with decent chairs. An anonymous benefactor had covered everything, though Mia knew exactly who'd written the checks. She'd tried to refuse. Romano had insisted, saying it was compensation for services rendered, delivered through his lawyer, so technically legal. The paperwork said Romano Security Consulting was contracting her workshop for overflow repairs. Plausible deniability for them both. The doorbell chimed, the new one, which played a pleasant tone instead of the angry wasp buzz. Vincent Romano stood in her doorway wearing jeans and a casual jacket, looking more like the man who'd made pancakes than the enforcer who'd taken down a traitor. His side was healed, though Mia knew from the guarded way he moved that it still ached. Mr. Romano, she kept her voice professional, aware of the distance they'd maintained since that night. I wasn't expecting you. I know. I should have called. He stepped inside, examining the renovations with what looked like genuine pleasure. It looks good. Better than before. It should, given what you spent. She crossed her arms. Which was too much, by the way. Consider it hazard pay. He turned to face her, and something vulnerable flickered in his expression. I wanted to tell you in person, Marco's been handled. Permanently. And the Volkovs have been convinced that pursuing you, or Jake, would violate our new territorial agreement. New agreement? My father's retiring. I'm taking over as head of the family, effective immediately. He said it without pride, just weary acceptance. First order of business was establishing clear boundaries with the Russians. You and Jake are explicitly protected under those terms. Relief flooded through her. So, we're actually safe? This is really over. It's really over. He moved closer, hands in his pockets, almost shy. You can rebuild your life without looking over your shoulder. Jake can go to school normally. Your mother doesn't need armed guards disguised as utility workers. That's, Mia's voice caught. Thank you. For everything. For keeping your promise. I told you I come when you call. A faint smile. Though hopefully you won't need to anymore. Silence stretched between them, loaded with everything unsaid over the past weeks. The danger that had thrown them together. The trust that had built despite every reason not to. The connection neither could quite name. I've been thinking, Romano said carefully, about what you said. About how you and Jake should stay away from me. Keep distance, let him think I was just a boss who helped once. That's still true. Your world is changing. Under my father's leadership, we operated in shadows, built power through fear and secrecy. But I'm not my father, he met her eyes. I can't make the family completely legitimate overnight. But I can make it safer, more controlled. No more Marco-style chaos. No more threats against innocent people. Vincent. I'm lonely, Mia, the admission came quietly. I've been lonely my entire life. And then you appeared in my workshop at midnight, brave and honest and fierce about protecting what you love. You made pancakes feel revolutionary. You made me remember that Vincent existed underneath Romano. Mia's heart hammered. What are you saying? I'm saying I'd like to take you to dinner. Actually dinner, not a business meeting at a neutral location under armed guard. Just dinner. Maybe a movie. Normal things normal people do, he smiled uncertainly. If you're interested. No pressure, no obligations. I know what I'm asking is complicated. Complicated. Mia laughed, though tears pricked her eyes. You're the head of a crime family. I'm a single mom with a 4-year-old who loves dinosaurs. Your enemies tried to kill me. That's beyond complicated. I know, his voice softened. And if you say no, I understand completely. I'll keep my distance, make sure you're protected from afar, never bother you again. But, he stepped closer. I'd regret not asking. Not taking the chance that maybe, despite everything, there's something here worth exploring. Mia thought about the man who'd shielded her body with his in a gunfight, who'd made her son laugh with chocolate chip smiley faces, who'd looked at her with such raw loneliness and understood what it meant to protect someone fiercely. She thought about David's warnings about the Romano name, about danger and destruction. But she also thought about how Romano had kept every promise, had prioritized Jake's safety above his own war, had shown her glimpses of Vincent beneath the enforcer's mask. One dinner, she said finally. Somewhere normal. And you meet Jake properly, as Vincent, not as my mysterious boss. If we're doing this, he needs to know you as a person, not a secret. Romano's face transformed, genuine joy breaking through years of careful control. I'd like that. Very much. And Vincent. She stepped closer, daring to be bold. For the record, she smiled, remembering that first night in her workshop.
Yes.
You're handsome. His laugh was startled, delighted, thoroughly human. Took you long enough to answer. You asked at gunpoint. I was distracted. Fair point. The doorbell chimed again, a customer wanting to know about the reopening. Mia went to help them, but glanced back at Romano one more time. He stood in her renovated workshop, looking at her like she was something precious worth protecting. Not a tool, not an asset, just Mia. Maybe David had been right to warn her about the Romano name. But David had never met Vincent, the man underneath, lonely and trying, making pancakes and promising protection he actually delivered. Their worlds remained dangerously different. But the connection between them was real, built on shared danger and unexpected trust. And sometimes, Mia thought, that was enough to take a chance. The end.